In a big and bustling city in the opening scene, law enforcement is following a criminal in a helicopter, which turns into an exciting police chase scenario. The main character, Ray, who is perched on a roof's edge, comes into view. A police officer issues a stop order to Ray, while the FBI also shows up on the scene. Ray is asked to not jump from the roof, but he seems heartbroken and left with no other choice, so he leaps off and lands hundreds of feet below in a lake. The action then jumps ahead a few years, when Ray, Amanda, and their daughter Rachel are shown walking through a forest. Ray talks about the past and his memories, and how events shape us and transcend through time. Ray stares lovingly at Amanda while she sings Rachel to sleep as they are camped by a river. But when Amanda is given a cancer diagnosis and is admitted to the hospital, their joyous recollections are short-lived. Even though the family spends a lot of money on treatment, the cancerous condition persists. The doctor advises the family to take a new medication called Infirmin, but they cannot afford it. The family celebrates Rachel's birthday and Amanda gifts her a plush rabbit called Paloma, despite their financial difficulty. Following that, Rachel and Ray engage in some boxing sparring, during which Rachel shows off some amazing prowess and knocks her father out. Also, Rachel looks after her mother by doing her cosmetics and lifting her spirits when she's depressed. Later, the doctor tells them about a brand new medication called Sparrow that works similarly to Infirmin but is more reasonably priced. The news excites Ray greatly, but when they go to get the medication, they find that it has been taken from the shelves. The CEO of Bioprime, the firm that makes Infirmin, has paid to put an end to the release of Sparrow. The CEO, a terrible human being, debates a politician on television about the high expense of cancer treatment. The lawmaker accuses the CEO of being unethical and cruel. The CEO is confronted by Ray over the phone. The CEO tells Ray that cancer is a capital sentence, and he then shows more callousness by stating that the huge amount of money paid on cancer treatment only leads to a few days or months with loved ones. Ray then threatens to shoot him if Amanda perishes as a result of his business practices. We see Amanda with her husband and daughter sitting beside her in the hospital room. Amanda asks Ray what he's looking at, and he responds, teary-eyed, that he's looking at her, calling her woman in a very endearing way. Rachel attempts to console her ailing mother by humming a melody, but Amanda passes away, taking her final breaths next to her family and leaving Ray and Rachel heartbroken. Ray walks out of the room and sobs in the hospital corridors until he breaks down completely. We find Ray boxing at the gym 6 months later, still in mourning over Amanda's loss. As he goes home, he discovers that he has bills waiting for him, but Rachel advises him to disregard them and they taunt each other. Ray receives a call from a journalist called Martin Bennett, who is researching Bioprime and other bribery suspects. Bennett wishes to utilize Amanda's narrative to further his investigation and requests that Ray meets with him in 20 minutes. Ray advises Rachel to stay inside and heads to the subway, where Martin informs him about Simon Keely's bribery and offshore funds. With Ray's assistance, they will be able to permanently imprison these strong individuals. Ray goes to meet him at the train station and Rachel sneaks out and follows her dad. Upon meeting Bennett, he tells him about payouts, and people in high places being involved in this scheme to maximize profit. Suddenly, a guy arrives out of nowhere and stabs Martin, resulting in a battle between Ray and the assailant. Rachel tries to assist, but the hitman pushes her off the train as it comes to a halt. Before the scenario finishes, Ray and the hitman pummel each other, and Ray has the upper hand and seemingly takes him out. Ray checks on Rachel after the hitman attacks, but the assailant stabs him in the side and throws him out of the rolling train. Before falling unconscious, Ray sees Rachel when she falls on the platform. 2 years later, Rachel is still battling vehemently in the boxing ring while trying to keep her rage under control. A bipartisan bill is being drafted by politician Diana Morgan, in collaboration with Bioprime, Chairman Vinod Shah, and Simon Keely. Ray is taken to a wall covered with studies when Rachel wakes up and starts talking to him about Amanda. He finds out about an impending Simon Keely-hosted UNICEF charity auction. Ray shows up to the auction wearing a stolen caterer's costume and posts an out-of-order notice in the men's lavatory. Then Ray goes away when Simon finishes his speech and dumps a scotch glass on him. Simon follows his guards to the men's room but is taken out with a knife to his throat by Ray. Simon is confronted by Ray regarding Amanda's passing and Martin Bennett's hit. Simon says that the hit was ordered by Vinod Shah. So Ray releases Simon but retains the knife as proof. Later, Ray sees Rachel and tells her what he's discovered. Ray and Rachel collaborate on their next course of action to bring Vinod Shah to justice and avenge Amanda. They are aware that it won't be simple, but they are committed to seeing it through. Ray is attacked by Simon's security as they are speaking, and a fight occurs. Simon is forced to shoot his guard when Ray manages to repel both of them. They both try to reach for the pistol, but Ray ultimately suffocates Simon with a garbage bag. Afterward, Ray comes home and frantically requests that Rachel pack everything away, confessing that he was forced to finish them. The guard who overheard a talk concerning a lady and a murder threat is questioned by FBI agents at the crime scene. All of the threats against Simon Keely's life are to be withdrawn, per Agent Sarah Meeker's directive. Ray and Rachel are currently making their way to Toronto on icy backroads, but the agents eventually learn that Ray Cooper threatened Simon with violence while watching live television. Also, they discover Ray's car leaving the crime site, so Sarah places an APB on it as he is a suspect. Later, two mercenaries get Ray's details as he goes through a toll booth. Ray and Rachel check into a motel, and as he unloads their items from the car, he sends his daughter upstairs. To let Agent Sarah know that her father is innocent and that a mistake has been made, Rachel chooses not to go inside the hotel room and instead contacts her from a public phone booth. She is forced to hang up to avoid tracking, but Sarah offers her a personal number to call her on a burner phone last second. Ray enters the hotel room in the meantime and locks the door with a bell. Then, when the troops enter the hotel, the ringing of the bell awakens Ray. He stealthily leaves the hallway with Rachel in tow and waits at the end. Ray battles the gunman when he shows up, and the two of them tumble down the steps. In the end, Ray chokes the mercenary before engaging the other. The merc chases Ray as he rushes with an axe to the bedroom. As soon as the mercenary arrives, Ray assaults him while hiding in a cabinet. They both tumble out of the window and land violently on a vehicle. Ray fights him valiantly before shooting him with his gun. When they both escape the scene, Ray catches Rachel's face in utter shock and swiftly gets to his feet. He then grabs his revolver with additional magazine. Afterward, the FBI enters their residence and discovers evidence that implicates Ray, making him the main suspect. A call regarding the two murders and Ray's car departing the hotel is made to Sarah. Ray wants to make amends for Rachel, although she is angry with him. The owner of the car lot is taken out, a shotgun is stolen, and the van is taken by the hitman from the subway, who is also seen inspecting a vehicle. Ray and Rachel venture off-road for safety as they drive over the snow-covered roadways. Ray stops the car and looks at the mercenary's phone, which is stuffed with calls from Shaw. He is startled to learn that Shaw has recently bought a home outside of Pittsburgh. He is then seen chopping down a tree close to a bridge and obstructing a tunnel with a barrier. He practices shooting in the woods, but it soon becomes apparent that he lacks a lot of expertise. Sarah is informed by Rachel that Ray is getting out of control. When Rachel brings up the plush rabbit Paloma, Sarah reassures her that she is in control. They disagree afterward on whether Rachel should join Ray on the expedition. Ray finally gives in and offers to take her. The hitman is seen assembling explosive shotgun ammunition in the background. He puts them to the test outside and discovers they are quite destructive. Shaw is leaving the home while Ray and Rachel wait outside his mansion, and the hitman's van drives by them. Many SUVs pursue Ray as he drives off, but he is able to slow them down by sprinkling iron screws over the road. Ray then comes to a stop at a tunnel, moves a barrier, and parks the car in pitch black. As Shaw's cars enter the tunnel, they discover a tree obstructing it. Shaw orders a retreat, but a bulldozer rams the back of the vehicle. When Shaw can flee, the hitman comes and shoots the vehicle, which is pinned to the tree. As the fight continues, Ray tells Rachel to stay in the car. But he is cut off as Shaw is shot by the hitman. The hitman pursues Ray and Rachel as they depart the scene, blowing out the car's back tire and forcing them to continue on foot. They traverse the woods before arriving at a station, where they steal a tow truck. Rachel notices the hitman's vehicle parked outside a cafe as she passes. Ray is seated next to the hitman when they enter the vehicle. After some conversation, the hitman admits that Diana Morgan is the real culprit behind everything, and is the one who hired him to hunt and terminate all the rivals and threats. The hitman then addresses Rachel and tells her he'll see her soon. The next morning, they suddenly learn that the tow truck has been stolen, and Sarah asks them to watch the security cameras. They learn later that evening, that the tow truck was Ching the City. The cops start the pursuit, pursuing the truck through the streets until they hit a traffic bottleneck at the bridge. When the FBI pursues him, Ray gets out of the car and flees on foot. The opening sequence is replayed as soon as he reaches the stadium. He is followed by the agents to the top of the roof. The biggest story twist suddenly appears. When Sarah asks Ray to back off from the edge, we learn that Rachel is actually Ray. She suffers from PTSD and dissociative identity disorder. She was responsible for Ray's attack on the train, and she committed all the other crimes and took out the mercs. She trained using a gun, spoke with the hitman, and she is on the roof right now after finishing off Simon. Ray passed away on the train and now Rachel feels confused and left with no other choice. She dives into the ocean as Sarah attempts to stop her, but is saved and rushed to the hospital in an ambulance. She awakens and starts to assault the agents. Once the ambulance finally crashes, Rachel flees and lies down on a seat, where an image of Ray later shows up and comforts her. He gives her the courage to seek vengeance until the end. Rachel then attends Diana's speech and observes her, while the hitman also attends the occasion. Diana then walks inside the Congress Hall, and Rachel slips in as well. When she wears Ray's jacket on her walk to Diana's office, memories of him flood her head. As she arrives, the hitman assaults her, pushing her outside and scouring the hall for her. Rachel dodges his bullet on the wooden plank by stealthily maneuvering around the construction site. They ultimately meet outside, which results in a brutal battle. The hitman tries to drown Rachel in a fountain, but Ray's voice in her head tells her to be tough, giving her the strength to overpower the hitman and stab him repeatedly until the water turns red. Rachel then goes back to Diana's office and pushes her to admit to her malicious actions with Bioprime. When Diana tries to bribe Rachel, she pushes and threatens her with a knife. Out of fear, Diana confesses everything, and little did she know, Rachel was recording it on her phone. Rachel flees the area and shares everything she has with the FBI, which leads to a detailed investigation. In the end, Diana is arrested for her crimes once the FBI obtains the recording. Rachel finally finds peace and decides to move to another city to start a new life.